everybody.
Hi, guys. Well, from beautiful Salt Lake City, Utah,
It's Thank God I'm Atheist.
the podcast.
I'm Frank Feldman.
And I'm Dan Beecher.
And coming up today, Dan, we got an ex-Mormon who's being judgy about other ex-Mormons.
Yeah.
And the way that it relates to all of our listeners is that you hear a lot of what she has to say about ex-Mormons, and people like to say similar things about atheists a lot of times, right?
Here's the thing. For anybody that's left a church, she's taken you to task, and we're going to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, just this idea of having like doctrines and dogmas as a former member of a group.
Yeah.
Kind of weird. But so
we shall see.
we're going to dive into that. And guess what?
What?
We think she's a little silly.
What? Spoiler alert. No, I take her very seriously.
All right, Dan. I want to do a follow-up a little bit on something that we've talked about now, I think a couple weeks now on the show, or at least it's come up and then we kind of really addressed it. And that's the idea of like white Jesus, right?
White Jesus.
White Jesus. So this is an ongoing saga of people rightfully pointing out the fact that the European and North American version of Jesus is racist.
Wrong. Yeah,
it's wrong,
it's-
and it definitely leads to sort of this white supremacy sort of thing, right? Because hey, it's like
it's a product of white supremacy. It leads to white supremacy.
Yeah, like it's this. Yeah, absolutely. Well, the Archbishop of Canterbury, one Mr. Justin Welby. He's the head of the Church of England, of course. He was on the BBC Radio 4, and he was asked about what he thought about the Western image of Jesus and maybe if it should be reimagined. And he goes,
Sure.
Yes, of course it does, right? And which I guess probably is not all that surprising when you know a few things about, Church of England. But he goes on. He says that he has seen Jesus portrayed in different countries during his travels. You go into their churches and you don't see a white Jesus. You see a black Jesus or a Chinese Jesus or a Middle Eastern Jesus, which is, of course, the most accurate. You see a Fijian Jesus. You see Jesus portrayed in as many ways as there are cultures, languages, and understandings, is what he says.
Okay.
And so
I've never seen a Fijian Jesus.
Well, have you ever been to Fiji? I have a feeling he might have been.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
But nonetheless, this has caused a little bit of a stir in the UK. Like people are going to disagree with any sort of thing. Anyway, he was denounced by all sorts of types. I'm sure they're conservative types or whatever.
Right.
But one of the things that I think this raises is it kind of the question of if you can create your God basically in your own image, right?
Right.
Like, what does it matter? Doesn't that just back up the whole thing that you are creating your God in your own image? Always, you're like,
right.
So it's just made manifest this thing that people already do, and it just so happens that it's a little problematic, extra problematic perhaps with white people. Because we really like to think we're the best,
It's just so funny. It's just like if you are unwilling to just go with the historical guy that you're pretending is the reason for your whole religion. Like there's this dude that you're super into. He's your dude.
Yeah.
If you can't just go with him,
right,
then you're making it up.
Yeah.
Then you're admitting that you're making it up.
I know. Like
so, yeah, I think you got a bit of a problem there, guys.
Yeah, let him be Middle Eastern. What's the problem?
Yeah. You know what he looked like. We all know.
Right.
Like if I showed you 22 pictures of dudes from different parts of the world and said, point to the guys that might be Middle Eastern, you're probably going to get it.
Right. Yeah. And,
So,
or, which one of these do you think Jesus actually looked like? Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Ooh. Why is that so hard? Just getting back around to that. Why is that so hard?
Well, there you go. I mean, it's
because okay, here's my big thing though. So the Europeans and North Americans, if you tell them, or Christians in North America and Europe, you confront them and you say Jesus wasn't white, and they're like, "Fuck you," right? Like it's like, no, fuck you. Of course he was, right?
Right.
I just wonder about the Fijians.
Yeah.
Right? Like how much ownership, like how much are they committed to Jesus being looking Fijian, right?
Yeah.
And how like I think that's the difference here, right? And so I actually kind of might take a little bit of issue with him just being so like, oh well, yeah, you see all these different ones and da 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 da, and
right,
and it's like, well, but how, like the Chinese, do they really think, like, you know what I mean? Like,
are you honoring the person who started your religion, or are you honoring yourself with that guy's image?
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
What are you really trying to honor here?
Your whiteness.
Your whiteness. Yeah. Or your Fijianness. Those guys are so racist. People in Fiji.
I think that there's like this sort of maybe even cynical attempt by, the priest who comes to Fiji, right? The European priest, let's face it, missionary, who comes to Fiji and is like, I'm going to convert them, right? And he goes, it might be helpful, right?
Totally.
If this crucifix has somebody on it that looks like them. Although that could actually be kind of scary, to be honest. They probably should rethink that one.
Yeah, some white dude's like, hey, look, we killed this guy. What do you think of that?
He looks just like you. That's a problem.
There's just no good answer, Frank. There's no good answer. They're backed into a corner. Well, speaking of no good answers, I am going to talk a tale of two Supreme Court decisions today. The United States Supreme Court, it's a mixed bag these days.
Oh, it's interesting. It's fascinating.
It's
if it
a hell of a
wasn't so
show.
Consequential, it would be fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, there should be an MTV reality show about the SCOTUS, probably, but there isn't. So we're stuck just looking at their decisions, which are bizarre. This last week, we had a couple of very strange decisions. One of them for our good, for at least for most atheists would say this is a good thing, which is that the Supreme Court struck down a Louisiana law that would have closed pretty much all but one of their abortion clinics in the state.
Right.
It was a 5-4 decision, and Chief Justice John Roberts was the one who normally votes conservative, but went over to but joined the more liberal justices in this thing. And basically, the law said that every abortion clinic had to have doctors with admitting rights in a local hospital.
Right.
Now, I don't even necessarily know 100% what that means, but it's a thing that they had to have, and the court said that's bullshit, and so abortions may continue apace. Well, it's not all peaches and cream coming out of the SCOTUS, however. We should be clear. Because this is the weirdest of all possible timelines, they are not, we may have gotten a good thing on the abortion thing, but then they also heard a case from Montana about a scholarship program that they instituted for kids who were going to school, primary and secondary school, K through 12.
Yeah.
That allowed them to basically they could, it's a voucher system. They're trying to give state money to scholarships for kids to go to private schools.
Right.
And this allowed them to use that money for religious schools.
Right.
Well, in this country, I don't know if you know this, Frank. This is a little known fact that we have what's called a constitution. And that constitution says things like, hey, we're going to keep religion and government separated, and the government's not going to fund religious things.
Right.
But that seems to not be how this is working, and the SCOTUS decided that was fine. Right. That it was totally fine for Montana to use its money, government money, for kids to attend private schools.
I know the argument is
religious
really something amazing, right? Like it's this idea that like if you're offering the scholarship program for private schools, and then you're going to discriminate against, and that's kind of their attitude, that discriminate against the religious schools, right?
Yeah.
Then you're using religion as like a test here or whatever, and we don't allow that under the Constitution. We protect individuals based on religion, and it's like, what? Right. This is an organization, and you're funneling government money to it. All the taxpayers should not be paying for a religious organization's thing. Now, I think there's a whole other issue of public funds going to private schools that's problematic, period.
Right.
That's me. But I think everybody, all of our listeners, can get on board with this. I mean, this is just like, Jesus Christ.
I mean, it's like,
it can't be going to Catholic schools. Like, it just can't.
It just can't be going to. I mean, and Catholic schools are probably the best case scenario.
That's actually true. That's actually true.
Most Catholic schools in the U.S. are actually pretty decent education. There's a bunch of other non-Catholic religious schools that are some crazy bullshit.
Yeah, this was a bunch of religious conservatives arguing against these things called the Blaine Amendments, right? Which were anti-Catholic, because we talked about this on the show, I don't know, 6 months ago maybe, that this was going to be coming up. And these Blaine Amendment things, they were anti-Catholic, right? They were specifically, they came out of this moment of anti-Catholic sentiment, but the school system sort of worked differently back then, and it was, it wasn't this issue of public schools versus, right?
Yeah,
it was,
and it when you actually read into some of these, some of the discussion of this, Justice Alito wrote his own separate opinion and talked about anti-Catholic bigotry. Yeah. And it's just like, dude, that's not what this is about.
Right. This is about evangelicals. They're using this argument. Sorry, that was what I was trying to get at. They're using this like, oh, we can't be anti-Catholic. Since when, by the way, evangelicals? Right. Like I grew up in rural Oklahoma with a lot of these folks. I know the sentiment about Catholics. So like, anyway, yeah.
Sorry. Well, and Brett Kavanaugh currently apparently has 2 daughters who attend Catholic schools. So great. It's just one of those things where litigate that issue on a thing where it's, in a case where it's actually like relevant. Not in a case that's just deciding if government money should go to religions.
Right. Yeah.
But, this is the weird times, so that's how that is.
All right. Well, I've got another story that somehow turns out to be another problem of separation of church and state, but it starts off with something that seems great and is great, actually. Mississippi, as I'm sure everybody has heard, and has decided to change their state flag. They had the last state flag that still had the Confederate flag, sort of in it somehow.
Built
right?
into it.
And so obviously in sort of this moment, a lot of pressure was brought to bear, and Mississippi acted fairly quickly, right, to change this. Their legislature voted on it. It's let's see, the governor's already signed the bill.
Yeah, it's gone.
And so like it's the state flag is going to be changed, and it's specifically the Confederate battle emblem will be removed.
Which is amazing.
This is amazing. It's awesome. Congratulations to everybody who worked on this. It's a big deal.
It feels like progress. It actually feels like I hate to sound hopeful in these dire times because there's so little hope to be had.
Yeah.
But that's great. That's an awesome thing to have happen.
There's some amazing, like the mayor of Richmond, Virginia. You heard about this, right? That he said that all Confederate statues are coming down.
I love it.
And it's wonderful. And so like there's these great things that are happening. However, for listeners of this show, there might be something of interest about this bill that was signed into law changing the Mississippi state flag. Turns out it requires that the phrase "In God We Trust" be included on the new flag. Which, okay, if you know anything about vexillology, right?
The study of flags.
If you know anything, right? You don't put words on flags.
It's the worst.
So, like, I know everybody out there is like, I don't want "In God We Trust" on this flag, for, your atheist reasons, right? As an armchair, vexillologist, I have to say what I find most offensive is that they're putting words on the floor.
Oh my God. Of course you would take that tack. Of course that would be your objection.
No,
I listened to the 99% Invisible episode as well, Frank.
And somehow I remember the word vexillology too. Actually, I just like saying the word.
It's a great word.
It's an awesome word.
I think, you're right. As a principle of design, fucking keep the words off of the flag. But also, fuck you guys.
Fuck you.
Well, it's nice. Sometimes you just got to switch the attention of your bigotry from one group to another. It's you just do a swing. You just do a pan left to a different group. Let those other ones have some breathing room for a little minute while you oppress somebody else. So anyway, it's so funny that as a group, non-religious people make up like a quarter of Americans.
Yeah.
And yet we're still pretty much a non-issue when anybody's ever doing anything out there in the world.
Yeah, we're going to have our moment, there's some, here's my attitude about it. And it sucks. I hate driving around Utah and a third of the license plates now all saying "God We Trust."
Right.
I fucking hate it. But sometimes there's bigger fish to fry.
Yeah.
Right. And right now there's some pretty fucking big fish. And,
absolutely.
And so like, I'm not going to say this is, part of it's progress and part of it's not, like it just fucking sucks.
Yeah.
It's a shitty outcome from what should have just been awesome, right? Let's just move on, right?
Right.
And let's just have colors and symbols and stars and triangles and diamonds and exit, whatever you want,
lions
right?
and tigers and bears. Just all
like
of it.
Get some symbolism on there. Do whatever. Don't make it like keep it simple, right? And then they did this. I'm just pissed. I'm just really
to give
pissed.
a little bit of background, I'm gonna do my story because it also takes place in Mississippi, and this story is about. Just to give you a bit of background about what they were up against in making this flag move, they may have had to include that just to get that flag out of there.
It might be true.
And the reason that I say that is because I'm going to tell the story of Scott Volland, who was bishop in the Loudness County church, the Heights. It's called the Heights Church.
The Heights, okay.
And this guy was a mucky muck there. Now here's the thing. He is a good guy. He's a white dude, but he has been fighting the good fight for anti-racism. Mm-hmm. He's been working hard. He's been joining the Black Lives Matter movement. He's been outspoken about it, and he got fired because apparently his decision that maybe a Christian who believes in the words of Christ should probably feel should have their sensibilities a bit shook up when their culture is fucking over an entire group of people.
Right.
But the rest of the white Christians were not having it, and so the Heights, as a church, has summarily dismissed him from his duties.
Good God.
Specifically because because of his activism on this point. Which is shocking to me. I don't know. Why is it shocking? It shouldn't be shocking. We're talking about Mississippi. It should be very obvious to me that, when somebody actually wants to fight for the right thing, fight for, justice and equality and good, fight against the maltreatment of fellow humans.
Right.
It shouldn't shock me that the rest of the group will go, no, we like the racist version. Get out of here. We don't want that. We don't want you around. We don't like your ways.
Golly.
So he's going to start his own church, which I suppose will be better than the Heights. It'll be called the Bridge.
The Bridge.
The Bridge.
Great. Where do they come up with these douchey names? Right. Like the Heights, the Bridge. It's like they're naming like condominium projects, right?
Right. Like, Fox Hollow.
Golly Dan.
Yeah.
I've got a little bit of a downer of a story. This has to do with the Department of Housing and Urban Development.
HUD.
Right? HUD. They have a new rule that they're proposing that would allow homeless shelters to deny transgender people access to single-sex shelters. If when it's of their the single-sex shelter of their gender identity.
Right. So a trans woman could not go to the woman's shelter.
Exactly. Right. She would have to go to the men's shelter. Which we'll get to all of that highly problematic stuff here, right?
Yeah.
So this is something that the Trump administration has been pushing for, obviously,
right.
In their effort to
be awful.
Go after the people with sort of the least,
the most vulnerable people.
The most vulnerable people in our country in order to score points with, his base. That thing that he's doing.
Yeah,
right.
It's such a cute thing that he does.
It's really cool that he's doing this for the fucking bigots in the religious right.
Right.
So anyway, HUD said in an announcement that the proposed regulation would ensure that shelters, I don't know how this works, must not discriminate based on sexual orientation or transgender status, adding that the changes better accommodate the religious beliefs of shelter providers. There's the issue right there. So this is all about religiously run or shelters run by religious groups being able to say, they don't want transgender people in their place. Because effectively, here's the deal. If a transgender woman who is being denied access to a shelter where she's going to be safest, i.e. the
Right.
women's shelter,
Right.
she would be instead referred to a shelter that accommodates men. And this is where they face, these women face abuse and assault.
Yep.
And quite honestly,
And get murdered.
Yeah.
Frequently.
Yeah. This is bad shit. This is really, really bad. And transgender women who find themselves in a homeless situation are quite often teenagers.
Yeah.
So this is really wretched shit.
It's literally
Like,
it's literally, if you could take whatever the opposite of what people claim Jesus's message is,
Yeah.
if you could make the most evil version of that, that's what all of these religious shelters are shooting for.
Yeah, I know.
Like literally their own. That's your guy.
Yeah.
Who said, take the weak and the those in need and take care of them.
Yeah.
But I'm uncomfortable. That lady used to have a penis or whatever, right. And then it's just like they throw human beings out into the street.
Well, and apparently the rules are the rule would be written, or the rule as proposed is written so broadly that potentially women who might be mistaken as transgender could also be denied.
Yeah.
Right.
Because how are they going to check?
Exactly.
Like what?
Yeah.
They're not allowed. They can't just reach down there or whatever. There's no way to check it. It's just if somebody at the shelter eyeballs you and they don't like the look of you, you're out.
Yeah.
You're not taking good care, ladies, you bastards. All right. Yeah. Well, I'm going to end us on I find it a fun note. Do you remember a few weeks ago I talked about an American-based, or maybe it's British-based, a group that has an international coalition called God TV.
Okay.
And how?
Yeah. This is the thing in Israel, right?
Yeah. Well, they had finally gotten a TV channel, a cable channel in Hebrew in Israel. So they were. Oh,
so it's a larger organization. I thought it was just a channel that opened in Israel.
No. This is an international. Yeah, they got channels all over the world.
Okay.
And they were stoked about it. But then they got in some hot water because, and really they should have known this, but the Israeli government issued them the license to broadcast.
Yeah.
With the understanding that they wouldn't try to indoctrinate Israeli people into Christianity. Well,
right.
Guess what? That's all they were trying to do. That was their entire goal. They said that their goal was just to have some programming for the Christians of Israel, but no. Their whole thing, and they said it out loud on their fundraise, when they were trying to raise funds to get this thing off the ground, because of course they'll just ask their people to get, rather than raising money for a business, the way businesses raise money, they're like, hey, give us free money, and their people did. But their whole thing was their entire pitch was nobody's ever been able to preach Jesus to these Jews in their own language on cable TV or whatever. So the warning signs were there. Let's just put it that way. Well, Israeli authorities have ruled that no, you can't do that, and they have been shut down.
Nice.
So that's kind of funny. They are no longer allowed to broadcast. They are allowed, however, to resubmit for their. Here's the thing. It's part of the deal is. It's not. This isn't just a government being grumpy. Israel has a very sensible law that you're not allowed to try to convert children under 18 to a different religion. at least not without their parents' permission.
Yeah, okay.
That makes total sense to me. Every country should have that law.
Yeah.
You can't just step in and try, The Mormons used to do this all the time. Go convert a bunch of kids and then, hope.
Chalk up
and
numbers.
Then just chalk up some numbers. Get some baptisms.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what they ran afoul of, really, was the fact that a kid could just be watching this show and be preached at. Yeah. So these guys are allowed to resubmit for a permit, but they're going to have to change their programming significantly if they're going to want to be on the air.
Yeah.
So haha to you guys. Well, listen, kids, if you guys have anything you'd like to say about this or any of our stories this week, please feel free to write into us, podcast@thankgodimatheist.com.
Or call and leave us a voicemail message. The telephone number is 424-666-8442.
Yes! Go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/TGIAtheist. Click the like button. Be one of the thousands. Join us.
And while you're on Facebook, search for the TGIA Members Only Lounge and request to join. It's a closed group. We will let you in. Also find us on Twitter @TGIAtheist.
More to come.
Hey, Dan.
Hey.
We played him last week, and boy, we needed more. We just had to go back for seconds. Scott Lively.
I love him.
Boy, he's got a good head
handsome bearded man.
Is he? I was gonna say he has a good head on his shoulders, but he's
fur on that head.
He's the crackpot for all of you who don't remember his name and what he's famous for. He's the one who was behind Uganda's Kill the Gays bill that criminalized homosexuality and even led to death penalty in some cases. Yeah. So he now is he's lending his considerable gravitas and his voice to the issue of whether or not we should be wearing masks.
Yeah, for you international listeners, just so that you know, that's apparently a political football here in these United States. Whether or not you should wear a mask to prevent you and others from getting the global pandemic that's going around, that's a hot potato.
Yeah.
So here's Lively chiming in.
These things must be balanced against the disastrous consequences of surrendering personal liberty to overreaching government, especially regarding face masks, which are in some ways worse than police-enforced lockdowns because they represent a literal, quote, in-your-face exercise of statist power like Islamic head coverings for women or the Nazi yellow star for Jews. Unnecessary public mask wearing, as opposed to reasonable usage, is no less a statement of psychological submission to higher authority than a dog collar. In the greater scheme of things, I believe liberty is more important than security if one is forced to choose between those two. Those who don't believe that are ripe for the mark of the beast, which is what this entire season of chaos is really about, in my view. But personally, I would rather die or be maimed from COVID-19 or be beheaded by a mob of anarchists and Islamists than become a safe slave in a global totalitarian government.
I want to know how we can help him in his goal to get decapitated. I want to be supportive. He would rather be killed. He would rather die than wear a mask to help save other people's lives. I want to support him in that venture.
He does. Oh God! It does seem like what's the nicest way of saying this. The world would be better without him. Right? Like,
oh my God.
like this, I don't know how this thinking could even work. Like, he's such a piece of shit.
How is it? Like, he is comparing the wearing of masks to, like, we know what it's for.
Right.
There's a virus in some people, and we're trying to keep it from going from their mouth into another mouth.
Yeah.
We know exactly what it's for. How could he, like, when he made the jump to Nazis forcing people to wear stars, I just, like, I think my head exploded, and I might have diarrhea now. I don't, like, what are you doing?
I know. I like, it's a courtesy. It is literally a courtesy, because every time you're wearing it, you're not protecting yourself. You're literally doing an altruistic act. You are engaged. You're being a good member of society every time you wear a mask, because you're not receiving protection. You are protecting others from the fact that you may not know that you're a carrier of it. That's it. That's it, you fucking idiot.
My mask protects you. Your mask protects me.
Yeah.
And
it's
your
easy.
unwillingness to wear it doesn't make you a warrior for Jesus. It makes you a fucking asshole.
Yeah. Pure and simple. That's it.
Oh my God. This narrative, I actually literally can't believe anyone has bought it. Even the most conservative, crazed Christian that you can imagine. How do they buy this idea that these masks are an infringement on liberty?
Right.
Just because, we are forcing you to wear it. Well, we force you to wear seatbelts. We force you to pass, submit your car to things before you drive it. It's a matter of keeping other people safe.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah. What if a surgeon was like, you know what? This is like a dog collar.
Right?
This is leading down the road toward the mark of the beast.
So
I don't know.
I'm not going to wear the gloves either. Fuck it.
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
Oh boy. All right. Well, we've had some folks write into us
and call in.
So let's see. Gene wrote into us to say, "Hey, Frank and Dan, your last episode reminded me that Jesus has indeed come in more than one color.
Oh,
transparent.
What?
The story of invisible Jesus is part of the Jehovah's Witnesses' buried history. Basically, the founder of the J-Dubs, Charles Taze Russell, broke off from the Seventh-day Adventists, where he was studying under a man named Jonas Wendell. In the 1860s, Wendell made a prophecy that Jesus would return in 1873. When 73 came and went, and Jesus definitely did not come, he moved the return to 1874. Then, when Jesus clearly didn't come in 74, he claimed Jesus had come, but was invisible. Russell took this all in and went on to found the J-Dubs. In his very first Watchtower publication, he claimed that Jesus had come invisibly, and that meant Armageddon was nigh at hand.
Ooh. Okay.
Interestingly, I discovered all of this after studying the J-Dubs for over 2 years, and this story was what convinced me not to join. Stay healthy and keep up the great work. Thanks, Gene.
Yeah.
That is some nuttiness. Yes. See through Jesus.
Yeah, clear. My favorite color, right?
It's clear.
It's clear.
Let's see. Should we do the voicemail?
Yeah. So this caller is responding to a story that we talked about last week about sort of the demise of specifically sort of the largest anti-gay conversion program. And I believe that's what he's responding to. And because one of the things that we were talking about is how these programs will sometimes they'll be like, oh, well, a real man rides a motorcycle. A real man plays team sports. A real man, right? And so it's like, you're
Right.
like, oh, okay, well, I got to get my leather chaps on. That's not gay, right? And
Yeah.
and so anyway, he's responding to that.
Hey, Frank and Dan. This is Cody from the Richfield area in Utah. I just wanted to say that as a gay man that enjoys shooting guns, has taken ridiculous road trips on motorcycles, actually enjoys going on the mountain to get firewood, likes to hunt, and is employed as a machinist, I am very often told that I easily out-straight straight guys. And as onerous as it likely would be, I think it might be fun to go to a camp such as you guys talked about in the last episode, number 447, and just really screw with the camp operator's paradigm. Anyway, love what you do. Keep it up.
Thanks, Cody.
Following in the footsteps of those super manly straight guys, the village people with their construction worker and their motorcycle leather daddy and all of that sort of thing. Yeah. Listen, I know a lot of gay guys, and I know several gym rats that will put any straight dude's manliness to shame. So frankly, that's a hilarious tactic to be like, well, just do more manly shit. You'll be straight as an arrow before you know it.
Yeah, no, because you're just going to go meet other gay men who are manly.
Yeah, exactly. Just put more fringe on the motorcycle. It'll all turn out okay. So, do we have anybody to thank?
We do, Dan. We have one new patron on Patreon. This fine person went to our website, thankgodimatheist.com, and clicked on the support tab, followed the links on over to Patreon, and signed up as a deacon.
Oh.
And so we have now Christine, who's a new deacon, Dan.
Oh, Christine, congratulations on your authority now as a member of the priesthood.
You can do so
well
much.
Done.
So much as a deacon. All right, and of course we have our top donor, Dan, our Lord and Savior, Davis.
Oh, listen, kids, if you want to do this, I heavily encourage it, and I think Davis can attest to the blessings that come.
So many.
When you decide to be a donor to this podcast of ours. It's free to you, but it doesn't have to be. You can pay us some money. So yeah, go to thankgodimatheist.com and give a little bit, or give till it hurts, whatever you want, and you'll be one of our favorite people too.
Thanks, guys. Hey, Dan.
Hey.
Have you ever heard of Met Harrison? Is that how you say
or
this
Meta,
name? Meta
or whatever.
Meat?
Not until you sent me this article. I hadn't. She's apparently a writer.
She's a Utah novelist.
Ooh.
All right, Met. Until very recently, she was apparently an active member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, commonly known as Mormons.
The Mormons,
the people we like to talk about a lot.
Yeah, but only because they ruined most of our childhood.
You mean all?
Or all.
Anyway, so as she doesn't go to church anymore, and she doesn't really consider herself Mormon, and but that hasn't her the fact that she doesn't consider herself Mormon anymore hasn't really stopped her from being really judgmental. I mean, you would think, hopefully, as you leave Mormonism, that you could leave your judgmentalness behind you.
She's held on to that part of her heritage.
She's good at it. Good God.
Yeah.
So anyway, she was she kind of got out into like this ex-Mormon little realm and started meeting ex-Mormons and everything. And she realized that ex-Mormons, they have like their own doctrines. And so like their own like... And actually, what she's talking about is probably more dogma than doctrine.
Yeah,
but
what she's doing is,
she's not to be pedantic or anything.
She's trying to be clever about the people on the outside are just as bad as the people on the inside. And she's written a little cute little op-ed about it.
Oh, it's just the greatest. And so we wanted to rip this thing apart, I think is the right way to phrase it. So these are the doctrines, right? These are the things she says, here are the top things ex-Mormons know are true. Number 1, you will be healed by trying every substance forbidden by the word of wisdom.
And now, to remind our non-Mormon listeners, our never Mormon listeners, the word of wisdom is the set of rules that Mormons have about what they can and can't put in their bodies, like no alcohol, no coffee, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And so she's saying things like, I feel pressure sometimes from other post-Mormons to talk about how great it is to drink alcohol and to be able to relax socially with friends, right? I've tried a handful of drinks, taking no more than a sip before making a face and deciding firmly, no thanks. So she's also that person.
Right.
They all taste like either floor polish or rotten fruit to me. And yes, I know what floor polish tastes like from childhood. She was probably a really good novelist, actually. But anyway,
I can't wait to get my hands on her books. I'm sure they're all sold out at Amazon at this point, but I'll wait.
Anyway, so she's sort of taking a stance of like, again, her judgmental stance that, you know, ex-Mormons, they're basically that we all feel compelled to prove how not Mormon we are, right? That's what she's saying here, right?
And that she feels pressured to drink alcohol. Fuck that.
Yeah, no way. Who are these asshole ex-Mormons you're hanging out with?
Right. Yeah, you might be hanging out with real dickheads, because I have, as a, you know, in my capacity as as one of the revered leaders of the ex-Mormon group.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not actually that, but I've definitely been able to meet a lot of ex-Mos. And let me tell you something. There's plenty that don't drink.
Right.
There's plenty that, like, nobody's putting any pressure on anybody. Oh, you got it. Isn't it great that we can drink now? No, I didn't drink for years after I left the church.
Right. I mean, there is a strong drinking culture amongst ex-Mormons, right?
Sure.
Of course there is. And there's a lot of play around it because it's fun to, like, you know, there's that, I think there's actually like the ex-Mormon beer drinking group or the ex-Mormon drinking team, right? Where they it's not for real, it's tongue in cheek. And their little logo is the Angel Moroni, but it's a beer bong that he's holding instead of a trumpet, right? And so, like, but it's all in sort of good fun, in like poking fun at Mormonism and the restrictions of Mormonism, and celebrating the fact that we're free now to explore,
of letting go of that,
and and okay, well, if you want to, if that's your cup of tea, you know, no pun intended.
Yeah.
Then you can have it, and that's great, you know. But instead, she's just like, so here's like another thing she has to say. She says many ex-Mormons also say that coffee will heal you physically. What? That coffee and tea are much healthier than Diet Coke and Monster drinks many Mormons use for their caffeine intake. I'll drink coffee sometimes, but only with so much sugar and cream that no one could pretend it is healthy. Like, so. Are you drinking it wrong? Maybe.
Right. Or
and also like
also, nobody has ever said that to you. No one has ever said coffee will heal you physically.
I don't get that.
They might claim that it's healthier than Diet Coke or Monster drinks. Because it probably is.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody's gonna, I mean, you know, here's the truth. There are plenty of ex-Mormons, plenty of Mormons who like develop a 64 ounces of Diet Coke a day habit or whatever.
Yeah.
So, maybe quitting that might heal you physically a little bit. And if coffee can be the sort of bridge to you letting go of gallons of nasty, you know, aspartame-laden soda, maybe that's going to be helpful. Yeah. But nobody's claiming that coffee will heal. Shut up. Can my response to her, every time you say something that she says, I'm just going to say shut up.
Okay, so here's number 2 then.
Okay.
Your sex life will improve, and you will feel better about your body.
Oh, shut up.
And then she's like, from other post-Mormons, I hear a lot of versions of the following. Alcohol and or drugs will aid your sex life. Tank tops will make you feel better about your body. There's nothing wrong with pornography, and it may be good for you.
Okay.
What?
I'm going to stop you right there because, listen, no one has said, look, people might have said, hey, I tried this drug, I tried Molly and I liked what it did for my sex life. But no one's going, look, you ain't had sex until you've had drunk sex. No, like nobody's saying that. And also, like, the fact that you may have heard someone say, I appreciate the fact that I'm allowed to wear tank tops now.
Yeah.
Does not equate to tank tops will make you feel better about your body. That's a different thing.
That's
you
more
are
of a
you
process.
are mischaracterizing what you heard, my friend. And also, porn. No, nobody's claiming that it's. I mean, maybe people are claiming that it's good for you, but at very least, all they're trying to do is celebrate the fact that they no longer believe the stupid lie that it's this poisonous thing that's going to kill you.
Right. She says, I'm a little cautious about adding pornography to my sex life. Some sexy...
Really?
Yeah, some sexy scenes...
Cautious about adding things to your sex life? We're all shocked.
Get this, though. Get this, Dan. Some sexy scenes from a good romantic comedy, however, are great.
Oh, my God. Look, I would never claim that bad things cannot come from porn. There are plenty of things that can go wrong with porn viewing, but come on, if you're watching some rom-com and getting hot and bothered, I mean, look, Mormons are famously vanilla, and ex-Mormon is probably going to be pretty vanilla for a while, a good long while, but all of this, and this is the whole problem that I have. I know we're only partway through these, but my whole problem with her thing is she's a neophyte in a group. Yeah. She's new.
Yeah.
And she thinks she gets to speak about, like,
here's what's wrong
all the problems in
I've
that group.
I've experienced all of it.
Right? I know what I'm talking about. Right. I have had sips from multiple drinks, Frank. I know what I'm talking about.
This tastes like rotten fruit. Okay.
Yeah.
Does really?
Great. Yeah.
Also,
none of us are drinking it for the alcohol flavor. So
yeah, exactly.
Maybe there's more to it than that. And maybe there's more to it.
And
it's
there's
kind
also
of
like, and here's the deal. Like, I remember I used to get on the ex-Mormon Reddit, the subreddit, right?
Uh-huh.
And a lot of people would like be very proud of their like, I've just started drinking and I want to and here's my favorite drink, and it's like a fucking rum and coke or something, right? And it's like, oh god, okay. And so like what I found was that like you would hear all these people talking about their favorite, new drink and everything, and it was always like, I mean, do they still make Zima? I'm sure they do. But it was always like these things that are like not actually all that great, right? And I always wanted to get on there and be like, there's actually like a whole like crazy, way better world of drinking waiting for you if you're willing to like jump in and try some like not super sweet flavors, right? And like there's but some people
need their transition.
They do need their transition stuff, right? But what I see is that she's in with an ex-Mormon. This is what I'm leading to, is that she's in with probably some new ex-Mormons as well. Right. And maybe their tastes haven't like moved on to like really hoppy beer or really like dark malty beer, or, maybe they're willing to spend more than $8 on a bottle of wine. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like maybe they're not there yet where they've like discovered, holy shit, like somebody at a dinner party opens a nice bottle of wine and they're like, fucking hell, what is this? Right. And so they just think it's all this like cheap shit that you drink when you're like, 20,
it's interesting because it's kind of like, and this is me recounting the experience of other people I've talked to, but there's this thing of when a a middle-aged man comes out as gay, there's this sort of new second adolescence that has to happen.
Absolutely.
As he gets used to a whole new world of thinking and a whole new way of being and all this stuff. And I think the same thing kind of happens when you leave a religion. You go through this you're exploring things that are very new to you, and you're just fresh and you don't understand a lot of stuff, and that's great. Like, we support you if that's where you're at. Just shut the fuck up. You don't know anything yet.
All right, so
you just have to know that you don't know anything, and then we're all going to love you and take care of you.
Yeah. All right, item number 3 of ex-Mormon doctrine. Joseph Smith was a pedophile and Brigham Young was a racist.
And I love this one. I love this one because she basically goes, well, yeah, but stop saying it. Like, that's her whole her whole thing is like, shut up, though. It's not as clever as you think it is.
I mean, she does say that she, as far as Brigham Young is concerned, he flat out was a racist.
And because he was straight up a horrible, horrible racist.
And she says, well, I can see redeeming qualities in other church prophets who were also racist. Okay, problematic, but let's follow her train of thought. I'm afraid Brigham Young is hard for me to uphold. I suppose by leading the Latter-day Saints to Utah, he made it possible for us to survive, and he created a cohesive empire brutally. I mean,
I love that she's still using the us phrasing.
Yeah.
He made it possible for us to survive. That says so much to me.
Yeah.
Like, you're still a Mormon.
This is
you don't believe the doctrine, but you haven't extricated yourself.
That is
yet.
incredibly true. And thus you shouldn't be writing this.
Right.
All right. Number 4, you need to read the following white male authors. She says, I've pushed back with ex-Mormons on what I see as worshiping a new set of secular prophets. And then she lists off a bunch of names. Richard Dawkins.
Dawkins is included.
Reza Aslan. Daniel.
Right.
Kind of,
which is hilarious because Reza Aslan is Iranian. He's like, you started your thing with white male authors and then you give us non-white male authors. Like, okay.
Her big beef here is she goes, she has like this, she's saying that this group of new secular prophets are largely male. Sometimes there's an exception for Brene Brown, she says.
Oh my God. I mean, okay. You know what? I'll go with her on this one. I would love to see more non-white female or non-male writers and enter the mix in terms in the sort of
more voices welcome, right?
More voices is great.
Yeah.
But also, you do kind of need to read the literature,
like before you're part on it.
Yeah, exactly. You're part of a new thing. You should probably do some of the reading.
Yeah. All right.
And I'm sorry. Richard Dawkins, Bart Ehrman, like, these are guys that you probably, nobody's saying you need to believe them, but do the reading.
Yep. All right. Item number 5, Dan.
Uh-oh.
Science is the way to all truth.
Oh, she's got us there. We do kind of like our science.
Oh, she says, I've tried to point out that I'm not interested in making science my new god because science is a patriarchal structure that isn't different from Mormonism from my perspective.
Science isn't different from Mormonism?
She says
really?
It's a patriarchal structure.
Okay.
There might be a lot of men. There are a lot of men in science.
I can get behind that. Like, there are
definitely
like that. There's valid criticism there. But to say that
she's saying that science is a patriarchal structure, not that it suffers from a patriarchal structure.
Right. Yeah,
which
exactly.
would be more apt in your critique of maybe of how many women are in science, right?
Right. And that's a great critique. And let's talk about it. But also let's talk about the fact that the conclusions of science are demonstrably better than the conclusions of religion. And that's what we're talking about. Like, science isn't a structure. It isn't a group. Science is just a method. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's the best one we got for determining truth currently.
Yep.
So
I know.
So yeah, no, nobody's asking you to make it your God, lady, but they kind of are asking you to pay a little bit more deference to it than, you know, the people who actually believe in magic daddies who live in the sky.
Yeah. And so she says, nonetheless, if there's one thing that I love about leaving the patriarchal black and white structure of the LDS Church, it's that I don't have to profess my belief in any given set of doctrines, even if I find most of the people around me do.
Okay. Well,
I'm not in that kind of social club now, so I suppose I will continue being a thorn in the side of every group I'm in.
Yeah, she definitely sounds like she's a peach.
Oh no,
just a real fun person at parties, I'm sure.
Ah, God, what's wrong with her? Anyway,
well, you know, okay.
She's going through a process, Dan. Maybe we should
just
give her...
going through some stuff.
And she's a writer, and she clearly had enough of a connection to like, and so she got the opportunity to write something like this. And okay, cool, I guess, whatever. But
you know what I'm going to say? Here's where I want to come in on this. Welcome. Congratulations. You figured out that you were raised in a cult and that it's not useful to you. I'm glad that has happened for you.
Right.
And I'm glad that you're here. And I know that you're going through a process and you need to feel like you know some shit.
Right. But so does everyone fucking else around you.
Right.
Right. Especially in the ex-Mormon community. Everybody's going through a process. Everybody's trying to find their way out and trying to find a new identity and trying to find their relationship with the things that they were prohibited from ever participating in. Right?
Yeah.
Like they want to go see what it's all about. And you did, and it wasn't for you. Fine. But guess what? In 3 years, when you're knocking back like 5 or 6 drinks at a party, like, guess what? Welcome. It's
exactly.
a process. It's not instantaneous. Just because you don't like your first sip of alcohol, you might try it again, and you might like the next drink you try. Right?
Yeah.
And guess what?
Yeah, you try taking 4 or 5 sips and see what happens then, because that's when the alcohol part is what comes in.
Exactly.
And it doesn't come from that one sip.
Right.
Nobody's going after it for the taste.
Right. And you might smoke a joint someday.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or you might probably an edible. You're gonna go that way. And you know, you're going to find that coffee's actually really fucking good.
Yeah.
It's a little bitter for a Mormon palate. I'll give you that, right?
Yeah. You'll need to transition in.
You, right?
Start with mochas. Do a mocha. It's a good transition drink. But yes, I here's the thing. I was a pain in the ass when I first left religion. Of course, I was in my 20s, so they're all pains in the ass. All 21-year-olds are pains in the ass. But I get it. We're all, we're all sort of in our process. So I'm going to cut her a little bit of slack. She shouldn't have published this thing, and I hope that in 5 years she's horribly embarrassed by it.
Yeah,
I'm sure she will be. But there you go. I just jumped onto her webpage, and she wrote a book called The Monster in Me. Maybe you need to sort of get in touch with that monster in you before you start judging other people's monsters. That's all I'm saying.
All right.
Well, listen, folks, if you have anything you'd like to chime in about, please feel free to write to us, podcast@thankgodimatheist.com.
Or you can call and leave us a voicemail message. The telephone number is 424-666-8442.
Yeah, go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/TGIAtheist. Click the like button.
And while you're there, search for the TGIA Members Only Lounge and request to join. It is a closed group. We will let you in. Also find us on Twitter @TGIAtheist.
And speaking of Facebook, thanks so much to the moderators of the Members Only Lounge.
And a big thanks goes out to the Red Rock Hot Club and to Gordon Johnston for the use of their music.
And thanks to all of you for tuning in. We sure do appreciate you.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.